And I believe we are live. I do believe. I am Ty Brown, and this is the second episode of Six Figure Dog Business Facebook edition. Now, if I've set this up correctly, and I've proven in the past that I'm not great at that, but if I have set this up correctly, then this should be cross-posting right now from my page, Grow Your Dog Training Business with Ty Brown, also at the same time with eCollar Technologies page. And so we should have some cross-posting going along where you're seeing this go on both. Now, it's we're going to be talking about eCollar Technologies today because one of the big questions that I've seen dog trainers have, and it, is something like, you know, when we're talking about eCollar Technologies and maybe the mini educator. You know, a question I see come up a lot is like, hey, what do you guys do? Do you include the mini educator in the price of your program? Do you make them buy it separate? Now, maybe you don't use the mini educator in every one of your programs. So the same question applies here if we're talking about other training equipment, a place cot or place board, whatever you call those things. You know, a place board or a, you know, long lines or leashes or, you know, things like that. Should we include that? And so that's what I'm going to get into today. And my hope is by the end of today's quick episode is that you'll have a much clearer idea on if that's something that you should offer or not. And so to get into it, what I'm going to ask you to do actually, oh, and by the way, thanks for joining me on my walk today as we're doing this live stream. I thought I would give you a little bit different view than just my home office. Out here walking the dog today. But first things first, in talking about whether or not we should include the mini educator or include any sort of training equipment, the question comes up on why are you asking that question? And almost always the why is, well, if I include it, obviously I have to charge more, and then now the price looks bigger, and when the price looks bigger, are people going to want it? And so super valid question, of course, right? But as we're examining why, it really boils down to we want to make our price look cheaper, right? I mean, I don't know if there's any other reason why the question come up is we are trying to see, hey, should I make my price look cheaper? Because you're saying in your mind, well, if I don't include it, my price is cheaper. But are they going to come back and are they going to be upset like, oh, hey, I was expecting to pay this, but now I've got to buy this extra, you know, training equipment. I don't know if I like this. So that's the concern. And then the concern on the other side is when you ask that question, some people are going to say, yes, they absolutely care about cheap. They, you know, they're going to say, yes, price is the thing that I care about. And in fact, have you ever asked this with a dog training client when you're on the phone with somebody? I have, you know, very frequently, you know, if somebody calls and they say, hey, like, what's your price? And that's the first question. I might counter with, well, our price depends on a number of different factors, but are you looking for just the cheapest program? Is that kind of how you're choosing which dog trainer you're going to go with? Because if you are, we might not be the right company for you. And 9 people out of 10 are going to say, oh, no. I'm just trying to figure out like what the cost is. I really like what you do and I want to see if I can afford it. Okay, you know, that's totally valid. But the reality is, even if people say that cost and cheapness is the most important thing, it rarely is. Because if you look at their behavior, you look at what they actually do in real life, more often than not, they have things that they're buying that they don't need, that they're splurging on. I mean, what do we all need? We need food, shelter, clothing, and stuff like that. And so, you know, the person that maybe has a lower paid job, maybe they are spending $6 a day on coffee. And I know that's kind of cliched. Or, you know, maybe the husband and wife that both have kind of lower paying jobs, they still find a way to get to Mexico once a year for a vacation. Or, I mean, fill in the blank. There could be a lot of things, right? That people are going to find the money for things that they value. Sorry, I know I'm getting a little bit shaky here. But they're going to find money for things that they value. And so, like I say, people tend to care more about comfort, ease, luxury, status. They tend to care about those things more than they care about price. Now, at the end of the day, price has to come into play somewhere, because it's not like as a dog trainer or as any service provider, we can just say like, well, you really want this, so give me 50 grand, and it's completely out of balance with what they're getting. It's not like we can do that, but really at the end of the day, if somebody values something, they find the money for it. If tomorrow you were diagnosed with an illness that, was life-threatening, and unless you could come up with, well, let's not even say an illness. Let's say let's say somebody kidnaps your spouse, and they say, hey, we need $50,000 by tomorrow. You're going to get the $50,000. You might have $0 in the bank account, but if you really believe that's the only way you're going to get your spouse back, and I'm talking to the folks, of course, who love their spouse deeply, maybe not to the people who are pretty angry at their spouse right now, but if you really want your spouse back, you find the $50,000. And so the shift that I'm encouraging you to make here is a shift in how you think about pricing overall. And so, in fact, I wrote this down. I'm going to read it so I say it the right way. And so the shift that I encourage people to make is a shift from not how can I make it sound like less money to how can I position my training such that it's a service where price is not the determining factor. Again, price will always be a determining factor, but do we want it to be the determining factor? And my answer is no, I do not want price to be the determining factor, because I want to be able to sell at a high ticket. I want to be able to include the stuff that they need. I want to be able to price it high enough such that we can give great service, such that we can afford to pay our people, a great wage, things like that. So those are the important things here, is we need to be able to have those high prices in order to do that. And so how do we put together something that that's killer, that's amazing, such that people want it enough to where their desire to have that thing overcomes their need for putting price as a priority? Does that make sense? We don't want our clients, and this goes for everything. We're talking about dog training right now, but this goes for everything. Anything that you're selling, unless you're selling like commodities, like oranges, it's not like there's a whole lot of different types of oranges out there to sell. But where we're selling something like a service, like dog training, we don't want price to be the determining factor. So how do you make that shift? How do you make the shift of going from how do I make this sound like it's less money to how do I build enough value, both real and perceived, such that the client is not using price as the determining factor for what they're going to do here? There's a lot of things. I'm going to mention 4. I took down notes here on 4 things, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but in order to make this shift, there's 4 things that I came up with. Number 1, you have to have something that's unique. If you look at what you're offering, and it's the same thing that everybody else is offering, if somebody's out there looking for solutions to problems with their dog, and every trainer is offering, come to me and I will teach you how to get your dog to sit, lie down, heel, come, stay, and I will teach you how to communicate better and have a positive relationship with your dog. If that's the messaging that everybody's getting, or that everybody's giving, and that your clients are getting, it's now very difficult to take price out of the scenario, right? Because if they go to a website and these guys are promising these commands, we're going to teach your dog these commands, and we're going to teach your dog how to communicate, and we're going to teach you positive leadership styles, and then they go and they see that that's about the same thing that everybody else is offering, how do they compare? They're going to compare based off of who's closer, who's easier to work with, who answers the phone, and price. They're going to determine, hey, everyone's basically offering the same thing, so let me go with something that's a little bit cheaper or a little bit closer or a little bit more convenient. And so now if you happen to be more convenient or closer, sure, take the business. But wouldn't you rather have business where it's not somebody pinching pennies and, but somebody that's happily paying a bigger ticket amount in order to get something that has great value to them, right? Wouldn't you rather do that? I know I would. And so anyways, that's the first thing. If you're gonna make this shift, the first thing that you have to do is have something super unique, something that's different in the marketplace, something that no other trainer can have, no other trainer can say. We often call it a USP, unique selling proposition. What is so unique about what I do that no other dog trainer can say it? How do you answer that question? Well, there's a huge process to that, but that's the first thing that needs to happen is you have to create this USP. You have to figure out what's unique. The second thing is you have to prove it. You have to back it up. You can't just say, we're the most unique dog trainer because of A, B, and C. Please believe us. There has to be proof. And so how do we have proof? We have testimonials. We have a process that we can show that, hey, look, this process is unique. The way that we train, doing it with this system that we've developed is different. We have to have maybe video proof or articles or, some sort of content that shows the difference or things like that. So like I say, number one, we have to be super unique. Number two, we have to prove it. And then number three, we got to get that message across. So on our website, in our digital communication, on any printed communication, things like that, the uniqueness has to come out. And again, think back to just about every website or dog trainer flyer that you've seen. Like, what does every dog trainer flyer say? Like, we teach you how to communicate with your dog and positive leadership, and your dog will do such and such commands and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's great. It's great that you can teach those commands and positive communication, all those things. Like, you need those things, but there's nothing unique about that. There's nothing different. Everyone's saying the same thing. And so you gotta, number one, figure out what's different. Number two, prove it. Number three, communicate that with language that helps people understand how different you are, and how unique you are, how unique your service is. That's number three. And then number four, having a sales process that actually takes somebody through an emotional, how do I put this? An emotional understanding of the depth of their challenges that they have with their dog and what they need to do to fix it. And then, of course, what they need to do to fix it is your unique service and the thing that you offer that's different than everybody else, right? And so think about, like I say, I'm on e-collar technologies. I'm live casting on there. E-collar technologies is different. This is why we've opted to use them, and we spend, between all of us trainers, 6 figures a year with e-collar technologies. And why? What am I going to say about them that's different? Because I've convinced several people to come to e-collar technologies, and I say this. I say, look, and this isn't me trying to sell them. I'm simply telling them my experience. And so me not trying to sell them has said things like, look, I used to work with such and such company. I'm not going to mention other companies. But I used to get my collars from these guys until one day we reached out to that company and said, look, we're getting a lot more failed collars. The collars aren't working well, and et cetera, et cetera. And their sales rep, or not sales rep, or whoever it was, customer service, said, well, what do you expect? You're buying twice as many collars this year as you were last year. And so, our response was, well, we sure didn't expect that. We didn't expect that when we're telling you that there's a problem with your product that, well, yeah, there's always been a problem. You're just noticing it more because you're buying more. And so that customer service really turned me off. And it was at that point, this was years ago, that we switched to e-collar technologies, and we said, let's give these guys a try. And sure enough, what we found was the quality was actually pretty similar, which was great. The quality of the product we were using before was great. We were getting some failures, but the quality of the product was great. And so we switched to e-collar tech and found the quality was right around the same level, maybe a little bit better, but right around the same level. But what was different about eCollar Tech? Whenever we had a problem, we called them and they fixed it. They didn't wait for us to send in the collar, do some tracking thing and make sure everything was fine and then send us out the replacement. They sent out the replacement right away. They got us fixed right away. They got challenges solved right away. And so over and over and over, I said, look, whenever there's a problem, these guys fix it. The other company, whenever there was a problem, they don't fix it. And so that was their USP, at least for us. Their unique selling proposition was like, look, our quality is great, just like the other guys, but we're gonna take care of you better. And so I'm saying that because if you're watching this on eCollar Technologies, you're probably using them for a similar reason. Now, flip the script and ask, when people are talking about you and your training company, is there one or two things that they can point to that say, look, if they're talking to their friends, this is why you should use these guys over here, because the unique selling proposition, what's unique, what's different. And if the answer to that question is, or of what they're saying is, you should use these guys because I really liked them, or they were so easy to work with. Like, okay, that's all right, but what kind of uniqueness can you create through your process? Through the process that you take people through, both customer service, ease of working with, but also the process that arrives at a certain level of results. How can you make that process different? The process over at eCollar Tech is so different. I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, but they hire better because they have people that are kinder. They, they have processes such that they can take care of you easier and better and quicker. And so they've created a process that is qualifiable, quantifiable, that says, look, I like them better because of these things. Have you done that? Or are you simply friends with your clients and they like you more? There's not a whole lot of reasons why. They're happy with the results they got with the dog, but it's not like there was a process for getting there. It was just like, hey, we're gonna do this, this, and this. And they're like, cool, I like my results. Does that make sense, the difference I'm trying to explain here? That if the difference you have is all about people like me more, I'm more sociable, I'm easier to work with, those are all good and positive things. But those are not things you can build a business on, because how do you do that when you hire new trainers? Or what about people that really are caring about results more than just being friends and things like that? And so like I say, too many dog training businesses grow without a USP, or they don't grow. And so the shift of how can I add more value so that we're not so concerned about price never happens, because the business has never identified what their special sauce is. What is so unique about me, what is so unique about my company, that no other dog trainer in the area can say it, because it's so unique to us. What is the answer to that question? When you can answer that question, you can make that shift. And then it shows up in your marketing, and then it shows up in your sales process, and then it shows up in everything that you do when you can answer that question. So to come full circle, should you include the cost of the collar? I do because what I'm selling is transformation. And transformation doesn't just come through 3 private sessions or 6 private sessions or 2 weeks of board and train. Transformation comes when the client and the dog both get new skill sets, when they both have accountability, when they both learn new things, when they're both motivated, when they're both educated, when they both have the materials that they need, when they both have the ongoing support that they need. That's when people have success. And in order to give people that, they need certain things. Training tools being part of that. Whatever your training tools are, whether you're using the mini educator or whether you're using treats and clickers for that matter. They need these things in order to be successful. And so why would I sell them only only a percentage of what they need? Because essentially that would be me saying, look, here's the 10 things that you need. You need accountability, skill set transfer, motivation, you need practice, you need repetition, whatever. You need training tools, you need treats, you need blah, blah, blah. You need all these things. I'm gonna give you 7 out of 10. Why would we do that? There's no reason to do that. I'm of the opinion that if I'm going to sell transformation, it's not just my time that's doing that, it's all the other stuff that they're getting. And so I'm gonna sell them the complete package. And if they need it, it's integral to what we're doing, and it makes sense, I'm gonna give it to them. I'm gonna figure out a way to include it in the price. And what happens when I do that is it allows us to sell at a much higher price because we're now allowed to serve them far better. And because we can communicate that to the client, it allows us to do things like charge much higher prices, but serve them much better, get much better results than we ever did when we had lower prices. And therefore, we're a unique service provider in the community that is providing a unique result through a unique process, and that's worth a premium. Does that make sense? So hopefully it does. If you go down below this video, you will see I'm offering a free report on how we actually increase our prices up to even $300 an hour. Go ahead, it's a free report, you can check it out. But at the same time, if you've got questions, normally I don't answer questions during the live cast because I want to, get the lesson out, get the episode out. But I do try to make sure that I get back after the live cast and answer questions and things like that. This is only the second one, so it's not like we've got tons of people watching just yet. But as this show grows, make sure that you come back, ask questions, and we'll do our best to answer those questions. Feel free to tag me, tag my personal profile or something like that if you need to do so. So like I say, Ty Brown, 6-Figure Dog Business. Go check out our page, Grow Your Dog Training Business with Ty Brown. Thanks for watching either on that page or on eCollar Technologies. Make sure to watch every week. Send us questions on things that you want to learn about. And yeah, thanks for watching. Until next week.